Cybercriminals are using social engineering, loaded with urgency and fear, to successfully prey on victims, your employees, or your customers. Protect your Office 365 email from today's most sophisticated attacks with Barracuda Email Threat Scanner. It's a free tool to help protect your business from these hard-to-detect attacks. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner uses artificial intelligence to hunt and eliminate Office 365 email threats. Find the cybersecurity threats hiding in your Office 365 email right now. Get your free email threat scan at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. We're proud to announce CISO Stories, a new podcast series in partnership with Cybersecurity Collaborative and Cyber Reason. CISO Stories features the candid perspectives and experiences of frontline senior security executives and dives deep into timely security topics. CISO Stories is hosted by Todd Fitzgerald, VP of Cybersecurity Strategy at Cybersecurity Collaborative, and Sam Curry, Chief Product and Security Officer at Cyber Reason. Listen weekly as they speak with extraordinary CISOs by visiting securityweekly.com/CSP.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Adrian Sanabria. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSA Conference 2021 All Access Pass. RSA Conference will be a fully virtual experience from May 17th to the 20th. Security Weekly will be live streaming Monday through Thursday in Virtual Broadcast Alley, interviewing some of the top sponsors and speakers for the event. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC 2021 and use the code 5U1Cyber. We hope to see you there. And it's official. Last week, we launched SW Labs with our first set of product reviews on attack surface monitoring. To see an overview of the category definition, our testing methodology, or the actual product reviews, please visit securityweekly.com/reviews. Adrian, fantastic job, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
let's get into the news.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you get a lot.
Oh, it was a lot of work is what it was. I know that for a fact. So let's see. Outgunned CISOs navigate complex obstacles to keep rising attacks from turning into breaches. Now, this is a vendor-provided survey from F-Secure. There's a couple things in here, though, that I thought were interesting to point out. And not necessarily with this knowledge of, we know that, people are out there trying to steal our data. We know ransomware is on the rise, right? I mean, we know some of that basic stuff. Mm-hmm. But what I thought was a little interesting is some of the, 72% of CISOs say adversaries are moving faster than they are. I expect that. Yep. It's up a little bit, but, nothing was too crazy. It was really more in kind of the targeting of where good security starts and a shift in the way we're starting to think about building our security programs that I saw most interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we've been talking about that kind of since we flipped the switch on, work from anywhere, work from home, whatever you want to call it. We as CISOs, we really need to start changing and evolving our mindsets and our mentality around things, right? I mean, it's part of the game that, as technology is moving forward. I mean, it's we're innovating faster than we ever have. And at the end of the day, we need to be able to adapt and adjust and overcome. This is part of it.
Yeah. And I thought, Matthew, go ahead, Adrian.
Sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say the incentives are tough here because, if you go back 10 years, I think we did start to get kind of an upper hand over criminals, cyber criminals. And, we just don't progress at the same rate as them because they have to get some breaches. They have to break into some places to get paid. And we don't necessarily have to successfully defend to get paid. Yeah, I mean, maybe some folks get fired, they get a job somewhere else, but we get paid regardless. Our industry is going to grow regardless. Whereas, they've got to be better than at least some of us, right? The slower folks that get caught by the bear to get paid.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting.
The financial incentives are definitely on their side, right? Like
oh yeah,
typical criminals.
yeah.
Right.
Of course.
They have to, we don't.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. So they innovate faster.
The what I found interesting was we sometimes forget about this people component, the people security, one of those 5 core pillars that Matthew just talked about on the previous segment. And if you look at where the attacks are coming now, it's going after the people, right? Sometimes we spend a lot of money protecting infrastructure, right? We've put in our endpoint securities, we put in our firewalls. But look, as we shifted away from a more hardened kind of perimeter on-premise environment into this remote world, the people side of this pillar discussion we had in the last segment is really getting exposed to the criminals, because now these phishing attacks, these business email compromises, these are the ways these entities are going after the people security components.
Sure, it's going after the weakest link, right? I mean, the criminals aren't stupid. They're following a great business model for their side, right? They're going after the weakest link and trying to figure out where they can get the most economies of scale, and it's going after the people.
Yeah. This next article, how to write cyber threat reports that executives would actually value. And I skip like almost all the way down to the bottom, Jason, because there's like 2 paragraphs that have all the meat. The rest of it's kind of like, okay,
Fluffy.
whatever. Threat reports should include information about threats that could exploit vulnerabilities within the organization. Yes. How the security team is mitigating those vulnerabilities. Yes. How it's defending against threats and any additional actions that will be taken. And then there's like these other 2 pieces that are buried in that second paragraph. Any newsmaking events or significant incidents that impacted others, even though it may not have impacted you, just for visibility, because the board's going to ask about it. And the last one was highlight any trends or issues emerging on the horizon so you're not surprised down the road.
Yeah. And to the last segment, honestly, we know your audience, because the way you're delivering this reporting to the board of directors or your CEO or your peers at an executive level, or maybe out to the rest of the organization, like VP director level, it's going to be different, right? You're going to write it differently. But as a CISO, know that it says it in the article, there's no requirement on how to deliver it. So by knowing your audience and delivering the right information to the right people in the right way is what's going to make it successful, right?
Yeah, and I thought his 5 pillars was...
Oh, sorry.
That's all right, Adrian.
I'm Mr. Interruption today. I'm the odd one out. I was just going to say, in case it wasn't clear to everybody, Matt's done the work for you. He's pulled out the most interesting parts of the article. They're in the show notes. You can go find the show notes. And I just found it kind of ironic that an article on how to write a cyber threat report executives can really use could take its own advice maybe and put the part of the article that you can really use at the very top. I don't know, put the TLDR bits at the top, hot tip. Sorry, back to you, Matt.
They had they had a certain word count they had to hit. And so, they had to add all the words.
That was one of my other things here was right size it, right? They could have right sized this article just like you would your cyber threat report.
Exactly right. And maybe you should break it down by the 5 pillars that we just talked about on the previous one, so that you have a consistency across the board when you roll it all up. Anyways, just a few tips. I'm just saying. Let's see. This next one is creating a cybersecurity strategy, an effective cybersecurity strategy. These articles sometimes, Jason, to me get interesting, right? Yes, we know you need communication and collaboration. Yes, we know you need to evaluate risk. Can you just get me to the point, right? And it took me a while to get all the way down here, and I still couldn't quite grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those articles that tries to bullet out some important pieces to building out an effective strategy. if all of these items were super easy things to do, I don't think we'd need these articles and we wouldn't have to keep harping on it. But, at the end of the day, I took, a few of them and said, all right, I get it. Communication and collaboration, super important. But how can we rip something meaningful to share with our audience on this? And you want to know what? At the end of the day with that, you need to make sure that all of your business units are on the same page. With those relationships you're building with the business units across the organization, make sure they have clear understanding of, the systems in place, the current state of your security, the gaps that are in place. Because no two companies are the same. So we mentioned it in the previous segment. All business, it's a shared responsibility. All business units need to have skin in the game, right? So it needs to be a shared strategy across all business units. It's the only way to be successful. It's the only way to get everyone with skin in the game. And communicating the risks and communicating the current state and communicating the gaps to your peers is extremely important.
Yep. True. The 6 leadership paradoxes for the post-pandemic era. I like reading this article because I try to figure out which one I am.
I do the same thing. I start saying, all right, yeah, I kind of do this. I do this fairly well. Ooh, I really suck at that.
So which one am I? Anybody?
Oh, let's see. I would say strategic executor is definitely in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would say you're a tech-savvy humanist as well, Matt.
I am a little bit of a tech-savvy humanist and a little bit of a globally minded localist because I have traveled the world throughout my career and gone to a lot of different cultures and areas. And I always try to keep that in mind when I'm thinking through that. So those are kind of the 3, right? The strategic executor, a little bit of the tech-savvy humanist, and a little bit of globally minded localist. I am not, just for the record, a high-integrity politician.
See, I
don't even think that exists anymore.
Well, outside of politics, it does. In politics, it doesn't.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
How about that?
I'll give you that one. Yeah.
You want to know what, though? At any organization, there's politics involved, right? And I'm not talking about the politics in government. I'm talking about, your business type politics. And being able to navigate that level of insanity, I think, is a great thing, especially coupled with always standing firm to your moral compass with high integrity, right? I think that's a wonderful combination to have. I actually appreciated this one being in the list because once you hit the executive levels, politics plays in the game.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking about this more from the political side, but you're right. No. As a leader.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, the high integrity politician basically says, listen, never sacrifice your moral compass for the pressure of the organization. That's something that, I put in my list of which ones I aligned with, because again, if you were to ask any business unit leader in my organization, they will tell you that I will not sacrifice my morals for the pressure of the business. Just not going to happen.
Adrian, which one are you?
I don't know. I'd need somebody else to tell me. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm not sure I'd trust my own answers here.
To me, you have some of that tech-savvy humanist. Yeah. I think the humble hero side of this too.
I was going to say that too. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
See? We got you. We got you covered, babe. How good.
Yeah, bold decisions I don't shy away from, certainly.
Right. That's for sure. This is an Inc. article, 8 tips for crafting the perfect business email. I brought in a couple communications articles this week. We've covered a lot on the leadership side. I want to bring in some of the kind of more the communication side. And I thought this was there's pieces here that I thought were really interesting to think about when you're crafting an email. Now, I get tons of solicitation emails all the time. Like anytime I connect to somebody on LinkedIn, the next thing I know, there's an email in my inbox trying to sell me something or other. And if you followed these steps, people, you might actually get me to respond better than you do. But I thought it was a really good way to think about how to craft a really good, succinct email with something that would get somebody's attention to take an action.
Yeah, it's funny. I started reading this, and I got to where they were bulleting out the different items, and I thought step one would be try to use a different medium other than email, and then go to email if you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Because email has become such noise. It's really, really hard to get engagement via email anymore, and it's just something that I've noticed over time, because we're just inundated with email content, that half the time, if my team or myself, we send an email, the folks on the other side maybe read the first 2 sentences and then they drop it and they wait for a meeting to happen, or a video call, or a direct message to come in, or something along those lines, something a little bit more tangible, right? A little bit more engaging. I shy away from email these days, to be honest with you.
So I've spent months researching and A/B testing emails, working on the marketing side for a few different vendors over the last couple of years, and there's a lot less study on this than you would think. There's a couple good studies done out there by companies that kind of specialize, like either they sell services or tools, that help you with this, like CRM type vendors and stuff like that. And a few things like the subject line should be probably no more than 5 words. And there's certain words that you can use in the subject line that'll get somebody to open it. So words that create some kind of sense of urgency, like the word alert or like literally alert, like urgent, that kind of thing in the subject line will get somebody to at least look at it. And then once they've got it open, if you've ever seen a heat map of how somebody reads an article, it's much the same with an email, where it's like an F shape, where they'll read the entire first, maybe second line, and then they'll just read the first word of each line going down for maybe the next 4 or 5 lines, and it's done. Like if I can write an email, where I think the max you want to do is something like 150 words in an email, and ideally more like 50 to 70.
Yeah.
And you got to get to the point right away. Like the biggest irritation for me is when the point, like that article you were describing, Matt, where you had to scroll to the very bottom to get to the meat of it. Like if that's not in the very beginning, and I've got 270 other unread emails waiting for me, I'm not going to make it there.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's why number 2 is keep it short, right? Subject line to catch them. Keep it short.
Yeah, but what does that mean? It means 75 to maybe 120 words. Like specifically in the testing that I did, like the subject has to be short, to the point, grab their attention, and then you got to get to the point early, and specifically 75 to 120 words, something like that. If you're over 150 words, forget about it. Yeah. Nobody's going to read a blog post that was emailed to them, unless it was a newsletter.
Right. And that's what you expect in that case. But also, got to have a compelling call to action, right? After all of that, you got to make it really compelling and easy for them to take the action that you want them to off of that email.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing.
Yeah, it's part of getting to the point. That call to action should be part of that point that you make early on. Yes.
Agreed. Science of People, we haven't covered an article from Vanessa Van Edwards in a while. And I pulled this one in here because I thought it was an interesting one. Not that we experience this kind of aggressive body language in our day-to-day work environment, but I don't know if you've gone out into the public lately. There's a little bit of angst out there, a lot of people. And I thought, why not bring this in and just use it as a way for people to, get an idea of what the different, kind of aggressive behaviors look like, and maybe how to de-escalate in a hypersensitive environment these days.
Yeah, I like this article, and mainly because of the de-escalation techniques that were in it. I liked it. But I also liked it because I didn't realize a few of these were not only cues that you needed to de-escalate aggressive behavior, but also were signals of arousal. I didn't know that, like nostril flaring.
See,
I I had a boss who did the jaw thrust thing. Like you could immediately tell when he was angry because he got the most aggressive underbite. Like that jaw just, just went straight out. And well, his lips would close. Like it was a combination of things, but it was bad because it was almost comical, and you'd have to not laugh at him when he would do that. But he'd get this, like his brow would lower. I in my mind I thought of it as like Cro-Mag face. Is how I thought of it. That jaw would come out, the brow would get all wrinkly and lower, and
ocular orbital tension, yes, with the jaw thrust. There you go.
Oh, listen, I didn't even know. I had no idea teeth licking was a thing. By the way, just saying.
Not
so
from
combination things,
standpoint.
I guess.
Yeah, it says teeth licking.
So Vince,
I don't know.
Vince, I'm sorry, but Vince, it was really easy to tell when you were angry. I'm sorry.
And then you pulled in an article. You're the first Jason used to pull in articles every once in a while, but I know Jason's busy, and so I always try to make sure. But Adrian, you threw a story in here. I thought this was an interesting title. There is no cybersecurity skill gap, but CISOs must think creatively. Enlighten us.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this is a TechCrunch op-ed. It's also an Extra Crunch exclusive, which means so I couldn't read the whole thing. I'm not subscribed to TechCrunch. I've thought about it. They do have some good content, but basically saying look, you're counting too many people out purely because of what's on their resume, and it's I'm sure Jason has stories here, and he can tell you that the CISO's probably not directly looking at every resume. Like there's, in most organizations, multiple levels of filtering. Like the recruiter is going to filter some out, HR is going to filter some out, and then within InfoSec itself, maybe you've got a couple different levels of resumes getting filtered out, and maybe a few of them make them to the CISO or whoever the hiring manager is. And but I think there's a point here, that we look too much for these very specific sets of qualifications and not enough towards people that could be trained into the role versus people that already have all these skills already.
And I couldn't agree more. Right, we're not doing ourselves any favors by being so stringent with our requirements. Right, and I've always been an advocate in anybody that you ever meet who's ever worked for me will tell you this. If you have the attitude and the aptitude, I can teach you. Right. And I've hired business analysts. I've hired, third shift, knock engineers where, and people from outside of the industry where you bring them in. And ultimately, I mean, with the right attitude, the right aptitude to learn, you can really get a diverse workforce within your security team, and we're not. But what we do have as CISOs is we have the ability to influence HR and how they're screening those resumes. And that's one thing that I've done is, make sure that our HR team and myself have a good relationship. So that way they're not using the traditional methods of screening, right? And we're kind of veering off a little bit because in many instances, I don't necessarily need or want a bachelor's of computer science because they may not be the right fit for what I need within that job. That business analyst who has the right attitude and aptitude may.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I know in government, it's a little bit different. Like if you don't have the CISSP, you're out of here, like you don't even get to the second round of reviews. But yeah, so they said the two specific traits they look for. One is curiosity, basically a hunger to learn more about security. And I think everybody wants that. Everybody wants somebody that can self-improve and has the drive to do so. Doesn't have to be bribed to do it or hounded to do it. Does it on their own. And then the other is a possession of a skill set nobody else has on the team, which I thought was an interesting take because you do see a lot of teams, and there's this great Marketoonist cartoon. If anybody ever sees Tom Fishburne's great marketing cartoons, where it's one guy standing up in front of a table full of guys sitting down, and they're all dressed exactly this. It's basically the same guy cut and paste, but the room is just full of 5 guys that look identical, and they're like, how come there's no fresh ideas around here? Right. And I love using that.
But unfortunately, that's something that is way too prevalent in IT and in security, and we need to change that. We really do.
Yeah. And so, I don't take as premise that we don't have a security skills gap, because I think there is a gap. I think there's multiple ways to solve it. One is look outside of specific skill sets to find the right people. We also had cyber.org on last Thursday on Pulse Security Weekly talking about what they're doing in the K-12 education to also get more people interested in the cybersecurity industry, right? And it's a combination of those things.
It is, because there's short-term goals that we need to meet, and there's long-term goals that we need to meet, right? Short-term is how do we stop the bleeding and get people in? That's finding the people with the right attitude and aptitude who may not be in a technology or cybersecurity career today, but how do we bring them into the workforce? Then it's future pipeline, because we don't want to be in this place ever again, right? So how do we continue to build that future pipeline? And that's partnerships with K through 12 all the way through higher ed.
Agreed.
And just to wrap that up, there was a podcast I was listening to the other day. I'm a big Scott Galloway fanboy, and he's got a podcast called The Prof G Show. And the April 19th one, so he basically takes questions that people have emailed to him, sent to him for the show. And they ask him about hiring people, and he shares some of his experiences there and talking to other people as well. And generally finding that the best people come from recommendations from other people that you already trust, that you already have in your team. So to me, the idea of like trying to pull from resumes, it's just really tough. And it's the same when putting together events and you put out a call for papers, trying to judge who's going to be a good speaker from, a paragraph of text that you ask them to submit, or a wall of text. Just isn't a real good indicator. And I like that idea of, going the network route rather to find good people to add to the team.
Always go to my LinkedIn connections. Always look for people I know or I've worked with or that are referrals from other people. I'd much rather hire somebody that I know or has great referrals, because that'll go a long way. Much more than just a blanket, just passing by resume. Adrian, thank you for your contribution. Thanks for filling in for Paul this week. Jason, always a pleasure. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.